All right, let's see if we can do this correctly today. Let's do the fade out. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Hello, friends. How we doing? Daniel Midson-Short here. I'm attempting a couple of things here. I got two cameras going today. Hello. And I'm going to try and multi-record this from different angles and see how we go. Welcome, my friends, to episode 4 of Man Talks. This is Daniel Midson-Short. Pleasure to be here with you as always. I'm excited to be back. I'm doing a 2 p.m. stream today and will be every day this week. I'm going to stick to this afternoon schedule today. And so it should be 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, and late in the UK. I don't know what time it is over there, and early in Australia. So who knows? We'll see how many people join us, and hopefully we'll get some interactions as we go through. So, my friends, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I certainly did. My wife and I went to a college football game here in California. We saw Penn State versus USC, and it was a lot of fun. And it was really enjoyable. I just love American college football. Being from Australia, it's a pretty crazy adventure going there. Just all the crowds and the bands and all the cheering and the festivities and the mascots, not to mention the game itself and the many beers that you can drink, which I did partake in. So, yeah, it was a wonderful time. And the USC Coliseum, if you've never been there, is pretty much it's an amazing kind of stadium in the middle of, I want to say, like a very interesting area of Los Angeles, but worth checking out if you get a chance, and a lot of fun to be there. And yeah, so I hope you had a good weekend as well. I'm excited to be back. This is episode 4 of the show, and we're going to continue on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the rest of this year, trying to uncover and look at some of the challenges that men face, particularly in our 30s and 40s, and how we can potentially overcome those challenges and have more joy and fulfillment and meaning and purpose and all the important things in life, not just empty success. So that's kind of the goal of what we're doing here. So today we're going to talk about an interesting topic. And this is one that I wanted to get into for a couple of weeks. I was going to record a video on this, and I thought, this might be better to do as a live to get some comments and some interest as well as we go through. So curious to hear what your thoughts are about this topic, and I'll explain why I've chosen this topic in a second. But the question and the topic for today, or the question for today, is why do men give up after the age of 30? I noticed for myself, and also for a lot of people I've been friends with and a lot of people I went to school with and just people I've met through work and things like that, there is a tendency for a lot of men to kind of give up on life. And what I mean by that is not something as tragic as ending their life, but they're actually kind of just going through the motions. They're not living a great life. They're not stimulated. They're not excited. They're not energized. They're not looking forward to much in their life. It's a very average existence, and they're kind of just feeling like, well, this is it for me. This is all I got. This is how it's going to be for the next 30, 40, 50 years until time moves me on. And that's a bummer. That's a real bummer that we feel that way. And so I want to talk through some of the reasons that I think this happens. But before we do that, I want to actually share, if I can share my screen here, I want to show some examples of this. I went on to the Ask Men Over 30 Reddit. For those of you who haven't been there, it's well worth checking out. If you're a man in your 30s or 40s, a lot of great ideas, and a lot of members here have some very valid things to say. And I just typed the words giving up into Ask Men Over 30. And you can see there's a ton of different stuff here about, giving up on your dreams, giving up on dating, giving up on my career, business opportunities, giving up alcohol, giving up on my life path, all these different things. There's tons of these questions. And some of the answers are actually really useful. So I'm going to explore some of those during today's session as we go through. But I think it's important to realize that this is a real part of life for a lot of men, is that they feel like they need to give up. They need to kind of just live a meager existence, as Earl Nightingale once said, which is not true. And so we're going to talk about that in some detail today. All right. So let's get into it. Why do men give up in their life after 30? Why do they feel like they have to just live an average existence and there's not much that they can do, and this is how it's going to be for the rest of their life? And why do they subscribe to this and do the same as everybody else and just kind of live in the doldrums or in a kind of haze of existence? Big question. I don't have the perfect answer. I have some suspicions and some reasons that I can relate to. I've talked to my friends about over the years. And so I'm going to share some of those today, and hopefully they'll be relatable for you as we go through. But some of these, I think, are definitely things that a lot of men deal with. So we're going to talk through them, and I'd love your feedback and ideas as we go through. So, the first reason that I think men over 30 give up in life is that they tend to feel old. They tend to feel like they're just getting older. Maybe their body's not functioning as well as it used to. Maybe it's not as easy to get up in the morning. Maybe they're not feeling as fit or as energetic. You drink and you get a worse hangover, whatever it is. You can't eat the same foods that you used to, and you're just generally not as youthful as you once were. Now, if you're in your early 30s, that may not be true. This tends to, I find, happen to me probably about mid to late 30s. But I started to feel a little bit like, oof, I can feel the age setting in. Now, obviously, the better care you take of yourself in your early years and your 20s and your early 30s, the less of this you're going to have. But you do tend to notice that you don't feel as youthful as you once did, depending how well you've taken care of your life. And you'll notice that a lot of your friends tend to say the same type of thing. They tend to say, "Oh man, I'm feeling old. Look at me. I've got a few gray hairs, and you can see for me, I've got a few right here." And yeah, they start to mention this kind of idea starts to creep in a little bit. And you're at the age of 30, 35, 40, and lo and behold, you're almost at middle age. And so you start to feel a little bit old. And I think this is one of the reasons that men start to kind of give up a little bit. They feel like, well, my life's been used up. I'm past my prime, whatever you want to say. I'm damaged goods if you want to get into the kind of dark side of things. But we do tend to have this attitude that we're feeling old and we're not feeling great about ourselves. So that's the first reason. The second, I think, is that there tends to be more responsibilities when we get a little bit older. So when we get into our 30s, especially say 30, 35 and onwards, we tend to have a lot more responsibilities. We have mortgages, we have careers, we might have a family, we might have a partner, we have taxes we have to pay. We have all these different things that we have to do if we want to fit into a conventional society. Now, I know there's people who live outside the conventional norms, and they don't want to have responsibilities, and that's fine. But I think for most men, realistically, we have some responsibilities if we want to have a life that's independent and one that is fulfilling for ourselves. We need to have some sort of responsibilities, and those do weigh on us over time. We can find that it's kind of like we're in the rat race, a little bit. We've got to make money, we've got to get a job, we got to, like I said, pay taxes, we got to do all these things, we've got to pay our mortgage. And these things keep us going, but at the same time, they kind of wear us down, and they can make us feel like, "Ah, I'm not enjoying life as much because it's very cyclical and we go through the same thing over and over again." So I think responsibilities can start to wear on us sometimes as well, where we don't realize they're stacking up, and slowly one day they kind of get the better of us, especially in our 30s and 40s and onwards as men. The third reason I think we start to give up is because of our peers. And this is no reflection on any one group of people per se, but I think if we look at the people around us, very often we tend to become very much like them. So if we see people who aren't as excited about life, or who aren't in good shape physically, or don't have their financial future together, or whatever it is, we can tend to fall into that same trap of copying or thinking this is it. This is the level that we can all aspire to, and this is as far as we can go. Now, again, I'm not judging whether it's good or it's bad, but I think if you feel like life's getting a little bit staid, or you're not as excited, and you feel like you've kind of given up a little bit, I would suggest looking at your friend group and maybe asking yourself, is it the people that I'm around? Are they actually influencing me to think this way? And maybe they are, who knows? But I do find that the people that we spend time with consistently, especially in our social life, they tend to start to shape the reality that we live in as well. So whoever you're spending time with will start to affect you. And if you feel like life isn't as exciting as it once was, maybe it's because of the people that you're spending a lot of time with. The fourth reason is there's a bit of a reality check. Now, this one I think happens to every man at some stage. Maybe you get dumped in a relationship, maybe you get fired from a job, maybe a business fails, maybe some hope or ambition that you had for your life doesn't work out like you thought. And you have kind of a hard reality check of some type, and your life kind of goes haywire, or things fall apart, or something like that. Now, for a lot of men, this is kind of the sign that, okay, it's time to give up. It's time to just accept my place in life. And, they might call themselves a loser, or they might feel like they've fallen behind everybody else, or whatever the feeling is. But that may or may not be true. But the reality is that you've had a reality check. You've kind of rubbed up against life. You've hit the wall, whatever you want to use as a metaphor here, but you've gone through reality a little bit and it's worn on you. And I certainly found this probably in my early 30s when I got divorced. I felt like, wow, I'm used goods now. I'm not a person who's as worthwhile because I failed in relationships. And then even when I started my own business and it didn't succeed immediately within a year, I started to think, man, I'm really bad at this. I'm just not as good as I thought I would be. And so that reality check of those two things really wore on me for a couple of years. And it took me time to basically overcome them and to find ways to feel better about myself again. But there was definitely a period where I felt like maybe I should just give up on these things and live a average life and stop trying to, aspire to more, if you like. So the reality check is a real thing. The next one I notice is a lack of energy. And this one in particular, kind of linking back to feeling old, I think this one is linked especially to health. And I've noticed this for myself. If I don't take care of myself and I gain a bit of weight and I don't sleep well and I'm not exercising, I find that my energy levels get lower and lower. And that actually reduces my motivation to do anything. Now, I noticed when I started speaking, I wasn't taking care of myself as well as I could have. And I noticed when I was on stage, I was tired a lot of the time. Even though I wanted to give out my best performance to the audience, I couldn't because I didn't have a lot of energy. And so, depending on your career choice and depending on your lifestyle that you want to live, it might be that you need to make some life decisions. I'm speaking to myself just as much as you, to actually think about how am I conserving and how am I using my energy. There's a ton of great stuff to read out there around this, around energy resources. One book that I really liked is called The Power of Full Engagement, which is a great book about using energy and how it actually affects you if you use it in a negative way or you let it deplete too much. So there's psychic energy, there's physical energy, there's spiritual energy, there's mental energy, there's all these different types of social energy, and you have these kind of batteries in your life. And if you don't let them recharge, you will find that they will actually wear down over time. So really important to think about, is my lack of energy actually wearing me down and making me feel tired or like I just want to give up in life? And if you do, maybe you just need a little bit of a reset. We're going to talk about that as well. The next one, and probably the most important, I think, that starts to lack in our 30s and 40s as men, is that we have no big picture. Now, you might call this a goal or a vision or a dream, somewhere that you want to go in life, but we start to lack having a big picture. I think especially when we're young, in our teens and our early 20s, we're full of aspirations and hope and optimism. And we think, yeah, I'm going to set the world on fire. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be world famous. I'm going to do all these amazing things with my life. And then as reality sets in, responsibilities set in, and all these different things start to stack, then we start to feel like, oh, maybe that vision wasn't as real as I thought. Maybe I'm not going the places I wanted to go. And we start to fall into this trap of kind of forgetting about what we were doing or why we were doing what we were doing. So I would encourage you very strongly to think about, what is your why? What is your purpose and your mission? And what's the big picture behind your life? Is there something that you're trying to do in your life that will actually help you to have more energy and more belief and more optimism, that will kind of pull you forward in these times when you feel like maybe you kind of want to give up or you can't be bothered anymore? Because I think the stronger your vision that's guiding you, the further you can see out, the more likely you are to actually feel that energy. But for a lot of men, they don't have this. And frankly, a lot of men don't ever talk about it. If you talk to most men, they'll talk about sports or, TV shows or video games or women or whatever. But you never hear someone say, man, I've got this big goal that I'm trying to achieve, or this vision that I have. And if you can find other men who are like that, they are out there, you will find that it actually helps you to think in that way and to be able to grow your life and to reduce this kind of tendency to want to give up in your life. So these are the 6 things that I have noticed for myself and talking to other men. I think these are the ones that we need to consider and to say, okay, am I feeling a little bit old? Am I starting to feel the reality of the physicality changing? Are my responsibilities stacking up? Am I feeling like, I'm just paying bills and I'm in this constant cycle? Are my peers kind of boring as well? Are they not going anywhere? Have I had a hard reality check? Has something kind of caught me off guard and I feel like, oh man, I've been beaten by life a little bit? Do I actually have a lack of energy? Whether, as I said, whether it's physical energy, social energy, psychic, mental energy, spiritual energy, is it lacking in some way? And then finally, do I have a big picture for my life, a goal, a vision, a dream, a purpose? As corny or as motivational sounding as that might be, I think that one in particular is one that can help us to reduce this feeling of like we need to give up in our lives. With this in mind, let's look at some ways that I have found that I've started to overcome this feeling of wanting to give up. Because as I mentioned, especially in my early 30s, there was definitely a period where I felt like, what am I doing? Who cares? Why am I bothering to do this? I should just live an average life and not do anything. So the first thing I started to do was to reframe a lot of my situations. And so an example of this is if you have a big failure in your life, some sort of, reality check or some difficult circumstance, is to look at it and to say, what have I learned? And if you learn something from it, then it's actually not a failure, it's a learning experience. And that's an example of a reframe. Now, that might sound a bit cheesy to some of you to think, well, big deal. I just look at every failure and I say, what did I learn? But if you start to do it proactively, maybe you write it down or you talk to someone else about it, you will find that you actually gain a lot from it. And the next time you seek for that same thing in your life or something similar, it's a lot easier for you to get it. So I found this in relationships. After my divorce and my relationship failed, I knew what I didn't want in a relationship. And I used that as a learning experience. And it helped me eventually to meet the right person and to be very, very happy in relationships. But it wouldn't have happened had I not gone through that failure. So that's a very strong reframe that I used that has really helped me to kind of get out of this mode of feeling like I need to give up in life or I need to just settle for something that I'm not really happy with. The next one is to refresh. And this one, I think, in particular, has to do with people in your life. And it can also be habits, it can be environment, things like that. I've talked about this in different videos. But the idea that if you're just hanging around the same people all the time, or you're doing the same things, going to the same places, eventually you start to get a little bit bored and you start to have that familiarity, which breeds contempt. And so it's very important, I think, to keep meeting new people, putting yourself in situations where things are new and fresh and interesting, and finding ways to kind of refresh your life whenever you can. Sometimes just getting out of your environment for a couple of days, whether it's on vacation or going somewhere else, to do your work or something like that, that can really help. Meeting new people or starting a new interest or habit, that can really help as well. But I find refreshing your life actually starts to change your perspective because you're adding new components to yourself. And whenever you're learning, that's when I think you really start to grow again and it starts to reduce this feeling of like, I need to give up in life. So, what can you refresh in your life? What's something where you can look for a new perspective, new people, or a new environment that will actually help you to feel better and to start to reinvigorate yourself? And then the last one is to actually reinvent. And this is important to realize too, is that there's no rule that says you have to be the exact same person your whole life. So it's important to realize this, I think, because very often, especially when we get into our 30s and 40s as men, we think, well, this is who I am. This is who I have to be for the rest of my life. And there's nothing I can do. And that is not true, my friend. You can be whoever you want to be, and you can change and act however you want to act. I know this for myself. When I was in my mid 30s after I got divorced, I went through one of the biggest reinventions ever. And that was when I decided to become a professional speaker. Now, was it scary? Absolutely. Was I bad at it? Yes, I was terrible. But I decided to reinvent myself and I actually started calling myself a speaker. And I started attending Toastmasters and trying to do a TED talk. And I spoke at a lot of events. And I really reinvented myself. And it took a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of energy. But I felt amazing after I did it. And I think for you, there's probably something in your life. It doesn't have to be what I did, but something where you can kind of reinvent yourself. Maybe it's dressing differently. Maybe it's having a different hairstyle. Maybe it's listening to a different type of music or identifying with a different type of subculture or whatever it is for you. There's something in your life where you can kind of let go of the old and reinvent yourself in a new way. So, whatever it is for you, I would encourage you not to get stuck in the old model of who you think you are and realize that at any stage of your life, you can completely reinvent who you are. The people around you will actually accept you more than you realize, even though you change who you are. So, my friends, reframe, refresh, and reinvent. These are my 3 suggestions to help you to stop that feeling of like you're giving up in life and you're starting to lose where you are. So I would love to hear from you if you're here in the chat and or if you're watching this after the fact. I would be very curious to know for you, what are the things that you do personally that help you to stop that feeling of you like you want to give up in life, like you just want to live a meager, average, boring existence? How do you fight this as a man in your 30s or 40s or beyond? And how do you keep reinventing and refreshing and reframing yourself? Because I think all of us have ways that we do it. And the more that we share them as people, the more likely we are to actually grow. All right, my friends. Well, that is my little session for today. I hope that that was interesting for all of you. As I said, this is something that I had been thinking about for a while and how I would position this. I think all of us go through phases in our lives where we kind of feel like we just want to give up. We don't really want to keep going or keep persisting in what we're doing. And sometimes it can help to just stop for a couple of days. But I think you'll find at the end of it all, really, you do want to keep going. And maybe it just takes a shift in perspective to actually get you back on track and on the way to where you want to be. So I hope that that's useful. I got a couple of comments here. Ed, you said, first time I'm catching you in the live stream. Nice work, mate. Hey, my friend, thank you for being here. I appreciate it, sir. Great to have you here. I'm going to be doing these episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So please tune in. Hopefully in the afternoon, or I think it's the early morning. By the fact you're saying mate, I'm guessing you're either Australian or English. So it's either late English time or it's early Australian time. But either way, great to have you here, mate. Glad that you're here. And Captain Ireland, you said, why do we give up? Because we've been beaten down so much. What else are we supposed to do? I'm abroad at the moment and unemployed and can't get work where I am. Well, Captain Ireland's Comic Scent Corner, I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. I'm sure things will turn around. Keep persisting. It can be very difficult. I've definitely been in that position as well. Even if you have to find a sort of temporary career of some type for a short period, I found that that helps, just getting some kind of income coming in and then finding what you want to do. But yeah, it can be very tiring. And as I said earlier, maybe it's something around your energy levels too. If you're feeling tired, maybe you need to refresh, take better care of yourself physically, kind of get some more sleep, spend time on your own to kind of contemplate who you want to be, look at your big picture, things like that. I don't have all the answers, unfortunately. I just know what has worked for me. And hey, I'm still figuring it out as I go. So, my friend, I wish you the best. We're here to support you. That's why this community is here. So I really hope that you find your way. And once again, I've been there, my friend, and there are better times ahead if you persist. All righty. Well, again, thank you for everyone who's been here today. I can see a couple of people on the live stream. Wonderful to have you here. We will be back Wednesday this week at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, and whatever the times are in the UK and Australia. I probably should check that so I can say it properly. But yes, wonderful to have you here. I hope that you have a great week. I'll look forward to catching you on the next one. And until next time, stay well, my friends, and be the man you want to be.